Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. Guys, I've been trying to put this video out for the longest, but unfortunately, I've always gotten interrupted, and this city has got to be the noisiest city in the world. I am coming to you live from New York. All right, so October 1st to be exact, March marks the day that the Black Panther Party was created back in 1966 by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton. Now, I know that many of you were probably taught negative things about this group, particularly those of you who are older than me or who are my age. And I know that those of you who are younger, you have been shown a different aspect of this particular group through movies. Well, guys, I am going to show you or share some knowledge with you that you might not have known. This knowledge actually was imparted into me from my teachers back in elementary school. And as some of you know, I entered elementary school in 1975. All right, so this was several years, at least 11 years after the Black Panther Party was actually created. All right, and I was one of the people who benefited greatly from what they actually put forth. Many of you may have seen them as being a militant group, part of the civil rights movement, and you equate them with self-defense. You're not entirely wrong with the self-defense part. However, what you may not know is they were actually against economic exploitation. All right. And they really weren't trying to tear down the system. They were actually trying to build up a better one and build up a new one. And I think things got misconstrued. Okay. And mainly because of racism, why that is the case. But then in other cases, I would say that there was definitely some misunderstanding because of the words that were being used at the time. You see, when you say revolution, most people think war and they think weapons. And yes, they did have guns, but it was only, again, for self-defense purposes. It wasn't to actually start a war against the United States of America. That's what I'm trying to get at. And that's what I want you guys to know. All right. Now, one of the principles, the battles that the Black Panther movement had was over housing injustices. They had a 10-point program for social and economic rights. A lot of people don't know this. So, what they wanted for housing, they wanted decent housing fit for human beings. Let me just go back a little bit and let those of you who are younger than me know. Many times, Black people were excluded from home ownership. And as you know, home ownership is a way in which we can build wealth. All right. The way it was done was through economic warfare. There was redlining, okay, where you couldn't buy in certain neighborhoods. And even when you bought or tried to buy in that particular neighborhood, a lot of times you were denied loans or you were the victim of predatory lending. Sometimes they would also undervalue the property, so they wouldn't even give you the amount of money that you needed to purchase that particular property. And as far as people who are renting, many people actually, were subject to slumlords, landlords who were absentee, didn't fix up the property, yet charged an exorbitant amount of rent. Okay. Then the other thing is, a lot of times, many of us were displaced by urban renewal in the form of eminent domain. We see examples of this in New York when it comes to Central Park and Lincoln Center. Those were Black neighborhoods. But they decided, hey, we're going to build a park. We need you to move. All right. In Minnesota, they moved a lot of the predominantly Black neighborhoods out the way so that they could do what? Build a highway. Okay. And it's not just in those areas, but all across the country, this had been happening. All right. So, how did the Black Panther Party try to combat this? Through their activism. One of the things they did was they organized tenants. Okay. Basically, a lot of people, they didn't know their rights. They didn't know that you didn't have to pay your rent if certain basic needs were not met. It's actually the law in the housing code, but many people don't know the law. And many people also can't afford a lawyer, unfortunately, especially back then. So they were paying all this rent to substandard housing. So that's why they did tenant organizing in addition to protests, in addition to sit-ins. They also invited the media in. Unfortunately, sometimes the media twisted things around, but they wanted awareness to be made, not just for the immediate tenants of a particular building, but for all tenants in all buildings who were going through the same thing. Because that's the thing about it, is that a lot of times you're struggling with something and you think you're the only one, but you'll find that you're not the only one, and there are other people also suffering the same thing. All right. The other thing too to note is that some of the buildings, when it came to the school, when it came to the health clinics, the Black Panther Party actually bought those. They bought them and they renovated them. Now you might ask, well, how is that possible? Well, one of the Black Panther's mother, she was actually Jewish with blonde hair. So, and she was also a realtor. So that's how they were able to acquire buildings, their own school and their own clinics. Now they had to rehabilitate those particular buildings. They didn't necessarily come where it was like necessarily move in ready per se. And then, yes, you also had white Panthers. These were white people who supported what the Black Panther movement was all about. And if you looked at the movie regarding Fred Hampton, you will see that Fred Hampton, even he realized that, yes, as Black people, we face certain things. However, there are other things that we think we're alone in and we're not. Hispanics are going through it. Other white people are going through it. Jewish people are going through it. Asian people are going through it. And that is when I believe, and many people believe, that the government saw him as being more dangerous, because he was showing that many of us are oppressed, not just Blacks. And what he was also, not just him, there was someone else, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Bobby Seale, who also got a lot of gangs that were doing negative things. He got them together to do something positive. So yeah, they accomplished a lot, even though we are still going through a lot of the same things today. Myself and others have definitely benefited for their fight. And this video is also to an appreciation of what they did, and also as well as educating you guys and letting you guys know the real deal. Okay. So Here's another thing, too, that the Black Panthers realize. They realize that whoever controls the land has the power. Okay. And you really can't have community or grow a community or develop a community unless you have space. And that's why real estate is important. Okay. Because you need, in order to empower a community, there needs to be a place where the community can get together, exchange ideas, exchange and share talents. Okay, because this is what fostered their social programs. It created dignity and power. It was also a way of survival for a community. All right, but what happened? Okay, some of you only saw where they were being killed, right? This is true. They did kill off a lot of their members. Not all of them. Some of them are actually, believe it or not, still around. But they did kill off many of their leaders. All right. But there were other things that were done that wasn't so nice. Okay. You had the FBI, unfortunately. J. Edgar Hoover, I believe, was the person in charge at that time, and he was a piece of work. He had them go to the banks and had the banks try to foreclose on some of those properties, as well as the properties of their supporters. Okay. Even had them condemn some of the buildings that the Black Panther Party actually bought. This is illegal, but that's what they did. Now, there were some properties that they did not own, that they did lease from others, and they put pressure on those landlords to end their leases. When they tried to buy other properties, they were denied loans as well. So this is how they were able to dismantle the Black Panther Party. But isn't it funny, though? Isn't it funny that they destroyed this party, the Black Panther Party, which was not political in the sense that they didn't have like somebody running for president or mayor or anything like that, right? But then they turn around and they incorporated or tried to incorporate many of the things that this party actually did. You know, like the health clinics. As a matter of fact, I was told that they had established 14 clinics, but today, as of today, there are 2 that are still standing, which is something, which is definitely a sense of achievement. So guys, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to share with you guys, that the Black Panther Party was really about liberation more than anything else. Okay. Self-defense, yes, it was pushed. Yes, they believed in it. But there were other social programs that they also spearheaded. And housing was one of those particular programs. And housing is what they believed would take us to the next level. And granted, yes, there are more Black homeowners, but not as much as I think there should be. And there are other things going on in addition to what was going on back then, that I would like to see changed. All right. So basically, guys, that is it. That's all I had to share with you. Hopefully, the information will help you make smart financial moves. Feel free to pass this amongst your friends. Why? Because each one, reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.